It's another Wednesday on Wednesdays, courtesy EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank. We do AM business. And today we're talking the Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit deal has been rejected by 230 votes, the largest defeat for a certain government in history. MPs voted by 432 votes to 202 to reject the deal, which gets out the terms of Britain's exit from the EU on March 29. So what will be the implications on trade for Ghana? Joy Business's Darrell Kwao finds out in this interview with the coordinator of the Third World Network Africa, Dr. Yao Graham.
Thank you very much, Doc, for making time to speak with us. Let's begin, first of all, with the difficulty Britain or the UK is in at the moment. Somebody watching may be wondering, is UK's problem whether or not they want to exit the EU? Why should I be concerned here in Ghana about what happens there regards to Brexit?
Well, the European Union, it's a very important trading partner for Ghana. And Britain, as a country, is one of the most important trading partners for Ghana within the EU. Ghana-UK trade have become subsumed within Ghana-EU relations. So whatever type of exit the UK has anyway would have implications, for Ghana-EU and Ghana-UK relations. Let's take, say, an example. Let's say if the Theresa May loses the vote, and the result is what is called a hard Brexit, which means that Britain crashes out of the EU without a deal. What would that mean? Currently, the standards which govern trade with Europe are the standards that apply with the UK for those of us exporting to the UK. A lot of goods that go into the EU, including the UK, from Ghana, pass through Rotterdam port. At the moment, they move freely because it's a single market, so free movement of goods and people. If Britain should crash out, that whole nexus of standards and trade routes and so on are broken. So it will become like a movement between two countries. So what would it mean for our exports, for example, which are destined for the UK? There'll be a disruption. I mean, frameworks will be needed for us to be able to move very freely. There may be additional costs. At the moment, are things going to the UK through an EU port, they don't attract any duty. Okay. But if the UK should leave and there's no framework, then, of course, these things will have to be subjected to normal rules. So you find that the discussion which is taking place in the EU at the moment, it ranges, and also in the UK, ranges from preparing to minimize the effects of a no-deal Brexit to trying to make sure that Brexit, is as smooth as possible in terms of the UK's international economic relations, which currently are managed through the framework of the EU. And of course, we are part of the people who, have economic interaction with the UK within this EU framework. So we have quite a strong interest in this outcome.
And maybe you could help us appreciate how big of a market in terms of trade volumes is it between Ghana and the UK, for which reason we have to be quite concerned?
The UK is Ghana's, I think, second or third largest import source. Okay, so that they are leaving the EU, for example, raises questions about whether the economic partnership agreements that Ghana has negotiated with the European Union, which has framed UK-Ghana relations, trade relations, both import and export, the standards, which phytosanitary standards, which about agricultural produce, whether they will continue to apply. Would a place like Rotterdam, which is a very key transshipment point, will Rotterdam continue to be a transshipment point? Because it's there that things go and get broken up and distributed within the UK, the EU as a single market. When the UK leaves, what are the terms within which such kind of transshipment and movement will take place of goods coming from Ghana, into the UK? Do we have to find new ports in the UK, for example, for our things to enter the UK directly? The UK is talking about itself improving these things. They're talking about the Dover, Calais link, new places at Ramsgate for managing customs and so on. At the moment, the paperwork, once it's done in Rotterdam, you're on the move. But it may be that now, if your things go to Rotterdam, new paperwork will be required before you enter the UK. So just think about, even within things coming into Ghana, Tema Port and all the things, and now there's a multiplication of that. So it's quite profound. And these are discussions which are of interest for us at the level both of policy and also for individual businesses who are interested, who are doing business, with the UK.
And when the discussions began about Brexit, we had the UK High Commission here in Ghana assure, there's nothing going to change pretty much. I mean, there's no cause to worry. And now we've seen that in the last few months, Britain has also tried to, sort of win back their friendship with some African countries. Is that to say Britain is worried about what impact it could have on the economy should they exit Brexit?
It is worried, because the thing is this, that for example, the economic partnership agreements, which currently have framed Ghana EU trade, including British trade, were based on a number of key presumptions. That one, it was with all of Europe, which, because the key countries that are of interest to us in the European Union are part of it. In this case, the UK. So when the UK leaves the European Union, that is a pretty severe disruption of the presumptions that underlaid the signing of those agreements. So we can't simply say that things will continue, because these are kind of very material changes. Should we remain bound by an agreement which has been disrupted by developments on the European side? Or we should be saying that, wait a minute, this is not what we signed up for. So if you, Britain, you've left, you cannot presume that you will continue to benefit from an agreement which you have exited from legally. So from Britain's point of view, given that the EPAs are very favorable for the European side, of course, they will be arguing that it should be business as usual. But actually, from our side, we should be saying that this is an opportunity to ask some questions about whether, in fact, we could get a better deal going forward with Britain, and also to put pressure on the EU to revise the EPAs, because we can make a strong and reasonable case that they have undermined, the agreement. So Britain, it's in their interest to say nothing will change, but we are not Britain. We didn't ask them to leave the EU. But if they are leaving, they cannot simply expect to carry that relationship with them. We have to decide whether we want that relationship to continue on those terms. So the charm offensive that the British have launched, talking about, reviving Commonwealth trade relations, actually, is much more for their benefit than for us. Because in relation to third-party countries, if they would have to negotiate trade deals with all of them, because now they are alone. So they'll have to now sign either free trade agreements with them or trade under WTO terms. And you see from the experience of many countries like China, when they joined the WTO, they were hammered in terms of the demands that were made on them, in terms of the concessions they had to make. So rather than we accept the British argument that life should continue as before, we should be asking, what does Brexit mean in terms of its disruption? Do the disruptions represent an opportunity to ask questions about some of the agreements that we have signed with the European Union? Definitely, Britain cannot presume to carry those benefits, at least for the kind of withdrawal period of 2 years. They'll continue, those are part of the things they are negotiating, to continue to benefit. Even if they crash out the European Union is putting in place, trying to have contingency arrangements so that they too are not affected by the disruption. So they want them to benefit from those things. But once they leave, they become third parties to the EU relations, with countries like Ghana. And they cannot presume that they can just continue to simply benefit from those things.
Because I was going to ask, how do we position ourselves, to benefit? For instance, you talk about the UK, which is just one country, if I should say, and the EU, which is a group of countries. How do we position ourselves to ensure that we are getting the best deals?
We in Thorough Network Africa have always argued that Brexit offers a chance for us to demand, a re-examination of the EPA agreements that we signed, because they presumed a certain European entity. That European entity is not going to be what it was once the UK, which is one of our key trading partners, has left. The EU, as a trading bloc, when the UK leaves, its composition and relationship, its composition will also change. So some of the people, for example, who would be having access to the Ghanaian market, who our trade relations with them are not that, our exports to them are not that important. So really, we should be looking at it as an opportunity to begin to demand, some re-examination of the framework. But definitely, we cannot presume that Britain can just inherit, the agreements we had with Europe, because in relation to them, in the same way that they'll be negotiating with third parties who will be making demands so that they benefit, we too should be seeking the opportunity to make sure that our future relations with Britain are more beneficial for us now than they are within the framework of the EPAs.
I don't know whether you are the right person to ask this, but do you think that our authorities will make those demands? Do you anticipate that move?
Do we as citizens feel that it's important to get our authorities to begin to look in that direction? I think it is. You are right. We don't make policy. But if the government is actually representative of us, and the whole debacle around the EPA, shows how badly this country has been represented on trade issues. And the EPA offers a chance for this government to walk the talk in relation to its interest in industrialization and so on. Because one of the things that's very clear is that the EPAs are bad news for our ability to transform our economies. It just cements us into a kind of raw material commodity export, location. So I think that and Ghanaian businesses also have an interest in asking the government, because the EPAs are negotiated primarily for a very narrow band of agricultural, exporters. People who are engaged in manufacturing for the home and regional market are being hammered by these agreements. So it's an opportunity for all these people to come together to ask the government to take a look, and seize the opportunity to change our relations with Britain, to change our relations with the EU. So Brexit may be a crisis for the UK, but it's an opportunity for us.
And that's AM Business today. Join us every Wednesday as we do AM Business. It's brought to us courtesy EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank. When we come back, we've got George Miracle Duka, who's Member of Parliament for Takwa and Swayam and Vice Chair, Mines and Energy Committee, joining us in the studio alongside John Abdullahi Janapo, Member of Parliament for Yape Gusegu, and also a member of the Mines and Energy Committee, former Deputy Power Minister. So I'm sure you figured out what we're talking about. The concentration is on power, electricity, if you like. So stay with us, and we'll come back with AM Talk with Kojo Yangston.